Hello.
Hello, Anna.
Hi.
I see Jaspreet joined as well.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, cool. Just have one more bite of my macaroni and cheese here and we can start. All right. Okay, so I put together this. First of all, can you guys hear me and see me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I put together this kind of impromptu tutorial. This is a little PowerPoint presentation just outlining what we're going to discuss. So, all right, so what I wanted to cover today, again, what we're talking about here is just giving you guys a brief introduction to TradingView, just in case, just for full, just to complete the picture here. TradingView is a online free platform for charts, right? So you could check out a particular symbol, and it works for pretty much everything, be it stocks, futures, Forex, any kind of tradable asset you could probably find on TradingView. Again, we have no affiliation to them that we probably should, because I keep blowing them up and sending them people. So the point here is to just get you guys up to speed, because our course from here on out is going to be heavily involved with TradingView, especially when we get to technicals. So what I wanted to cover today is just the basics, like the layout, adding symbols, the watch list, drawing tools, indicators, and the programming and trading panel. We're not going to delve in too much to this, but this is where you hook up your broker to it and stuff like that. So the layout, we're just going to go through these things one by one. First of all, you have your chart, obviously watch list, drawing tools, indicators, and programming and trading panel is basically just a rehash from before, but we're going to cover those things one by one. So first of all, symbols, you're going to input the symbol into the input box at the top left, right? So if we switch on over to TradingView, I have this open right here. This is what I mean by this. Right now, I'm looking at ZB. Anybody remember what ZB is? I mean, it says it right here, just for a heads up. That's the T-bond futures, and what that means is the U.S. Treasury bond, the 30-year bond futures on that product. Okay, so if I want to put something else, I can notice that the moment I start to backspace here, TradingView gives me an option of some stuff that I can select. Also, if I'm kind of iffy about what the symbol is, I can select a category: stocks, futures, Forex, CFD products, cryptos, and so on. All right, so if I'm looking at my, just for now, I can just have all. If I start to type in, say, Microsoft, MS, it's going to start filling in everything it possibly can. And, if I select stocks, it's going to narrow this down into stocks. So if I just kind of search down here, well, eventually I can find, if I don't remember the symbol off the top of my head, I could just go down and I can find it. So if I click on that, I'm going to get the chart for Microsoft. All right. Now, the cool thing about this is that they give you these little heads ups, right? So, for example, if I know that my let's say I want to check out the S&P 500. Do you guys remember the symbol for the S&P, the futures contract that tracks the S&P?
It's S.
It's ES. All right, close enough. Right, so notice here I have stock, right? So it's not pulling up the S&P 500. Why? Because it's pulling up all these stock symbols that start with ES, right? And if you remember, ES is a futures contract, right? So I just go on over here, to futures, or I can click all. It's a very popular contract. It will come up. But if I go to futures, it's going to select the contracts that, excuse me, by the first two letters ES. So if I go ahead and notice that there's a little drop-down option, if I click on this, it's going to show me all contracts available for the S&P E-mini futures. Okay, so remember how I was telling you guys in the last class that a futures contract is not only the product, but it's composed of the expiration as well. Okay, so this is the March 2020 contract, as in it expires in March of 2020. This is the June and so on. Notice how in the symbol, and I have this documented here, in the symbol, we typically have ES followed by a letter, and that letter stands for the month, and then we have the year, right? So 2020 is obviously the year. So if, again, I come over here to ES, I check this out, ESH is March 2020, M is June. The letters don't really seem to have any rhyme or reason, but obviously the year is pretty explicit. You can also look at what we call continuous contracts. That's basically every time, this is just the current contract. So whatever contract is current, we're going to be taking the prices for that. As soon as it rolls over, this symbol is going to do that automatically for you. So you don't have to keep refreshing this contract every single time it expires, right? Because if I'm sitting here watching the March 2020 contract, well, what happens in April, right? So this contract is going to expire, and I need to switch to this one. Okay, so the ES one bang or one exclamation mark is going to take care of that for you. Anything with a one exclamation mark, again, is going to be the continuous contract. And if you see a 2 here, that's the continuous contract plus 1. Okay, so it's basically, instead of the current contract, it's the next one up front. So whereas the continuous contract would be looking at March, the next would be looking at June, and so on. Okay, so it's plus 1. So that's how you navigate the symbol window. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay, so that's probably the most important thing to understand, is how you put a contract or a stock or whatever you want to look at, how you're able to view that. Okay, so watch list. This is kind of important because, again, I want to start you guys in the direction of trading. And before you trade, you got to be able to watch the market, see what they do, see how they act, right? So creating a watch list is a really good way to do that. And as you see, I have mine up in this corner here. This is the pane for it. You see, I have a whole bunch of shit that I follow here. But if I want to add something, I can simply go to the watch list. It says add symbol, and I can just simply type in what I want. And again, you see the same thing come up with this little selector thing here. Again, I have futures selected from before, so it's going to be thinking I intend for a futures contract. I don't, so I can go over here to stock, and this is going to pull up what I want. Okay, so when you do that, it just pushes it down to the bottom of your list. I have these, you might be able to tell, I have these roughly organized. Here are my risk products like gold, all of the treasury contracts. I have oil, I have ES, US oil should be up here, and so on, right? I have some currencies, including the Dixie, that's the index that tracks the US dollar. So if I wanted to add these things, I can just kind of, move them around to where it makes sense for me. Okay, additionally, you can add multiple watch lists, right? So if you see in here, I just click up in the top right-hand corner here, this little list-looking thing here, and I could just create new lists. Okay, but as you see, I have a whole bunch of these, right? So I have the watch list, I have stocks, different categories of stocks that I'm following for whatever reason. This mimics my actual portfolio. Okay, so can go into general. I have, just a abbreviated one. So I have all kinds of different lists for all kinds of different purposes, but in general, I just keep this one up and running. So again, you can not only have your watch list of things that you look at, but you can have multiple of them. So that's kind of a nicety of TradingView. Okay, questions so far?
No.
Okay, good. Okay, so drawing tools. This is the pane on the left, and this is where things really get interesting, right? Because these features are convenient tools for selecting and drawing patterns. This is going to make a lot of sense to you when we start dealing with technical analysis, which actually starts in the next class on Monday. Okay, so you can, all of these patterns and so forth that I'm going to teach you, you can actually draw on the chart using TradingView. And of course, you could customize these even further, the line type and the dotted line, etc. So the drawing tools we're going to cover is, first of all, the cursor, the selector. So this is basically just something, when I hover around here on the screen, I can have it be the plus sign, or I can come over here. This is the drawing pane right here that I'm talking about. It's on the left side, to the left under the symbol menu. And, for the cursor, or, the cursor selection, I can select a dot, arrow, or eraser if I wrote stuff on the screen, which I'll show you guys how to do that later. But that's just the basics of that. Next, we have the trend line tools. These are very, very useful. Okay, so when we start discussing technicals, you'll understand a little bit more about how these can be used, but I have a variety of them. Notice here, I just click on the little arrow. It's a drop-down menu that pops out, very user-friendly. So here I can select a trend line. Let's see if I wanted to, again, we'll talk about how to draw these trend lines in the next class, actually. But if you see, I have this line, I can customize this line. I can customize the color. This little menu pops up here, so I can customize the color. I can customize the width of the line if I want it skinnier or thicker or whatever. And there's a list of options here that you can go ahead and play with at your on your own time. But if I have a bunch of trend lines, I might choose the more important ones, so to speak, with by customizing the line type in some way. And of course, if I'm done with it, I can just go here to the little trash can and it gets rid of it. Okay, so I don't clutter my chart with a whole bunch of stuff. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, cool. Okay. Gann and Fibonacci tools. If you can see here, I'm basically just progressing down the line. Okay. Now, this is one of the most utilitarian features of TradingView in general. Okay. And I'll tell you why. Because there's all these different tools here. I don't use even half of these. The main one that I use is the Fibonacci retracements. This is, if I had to pick the most incredible tool or the most powerful tool in trading, or at least in the top 3 or top 5 or whatever, it would be Fibonacci retracements, right? So I can go, basically if I do this, you see how it draws these levels here for me. Personally, I don't like this rainbow style. So I have some, let's see, where is it? I have a default here that just turns it white, right? So I don't like those colors. I think that they're a little gaudy and they give me no information, right? So we're going to talk about Fibonacci levels in the technicals class. If not on the Monday class, on the Wednesday class for sure. Again, it's one of the most powerful tools in trading. And if you look, it identifies these levels here for you. Okay, it just, if given a what we call a pivot, it goes ahead and draws these lines based on some math, which I'll discuss in the class. But the point is how to use the tool. Okay, so I can go to the little trash can to remove it, or I could just hit delete. But again, you will go over here to the drawing tools, select the fib retracement, and you're good to go. Okay. Now, what's cool about this is that once I've selected this, notice that it stays here. Okay, so if I want to draw some more, well, then I simply click on it again and it remembers what I selected. Okay, so you can draw multiple of them if you want. And I can come over here, look at some other stuff. Gold, for example, I'm looking at gold and then say, hey, maybe I'll go back to Microsoft again. And when I do, this is still there for me. Okay, so I have many, many charts that I've drawn these things like years ago and it's still there. Okay, so if you have an account, it will remember what you did. So that's pretty cool. Questions so far? So pretty straightforward, right? We're just going through each of the drawing tools. There's geometric shapes. I don't use this one very much. If I want to like highlight some stuff, you know, you could do it that way. Basically, the moment I click, it's going to start the shape, and I just drag it to wherever I want it. You know, it's kind of good for teaching if I want to highlight a region, but other than that, I don't really use these too much. Text does come in handy, so I might say like I hear something like that, and I can you know, pull this over, you know, to wherever I want. Obviously, change the color if I want to. So red for sell, put sell here, take profits, and so forth. So. Questions so far? Again, this is just basics here. There's different text things I could do. You guys can go ahead and play with that on your own time. Customize your charts. I always advocate making the chart your own, right? So it's kind of like if if you're at university, right, and you're studying, you know, write little notes on the side of your textbook and so forth. This is what I advocate the same thing with your charts. You know, you want to draw your levels. You want to try new things. You want to try to draw out those technicals that I'm going to be teaching you, and just experiment with it. The next one, patterns. This is another very, very important trading view tool. In particular, these aren't going to be making much sense to you right now because we haven't gotten there in the lesson yet. Okay, but just suffice it to say that you can construct the patterns that we will be teaching you using these tools. For example, we have Elliott wave. I can do the 5-3 wave pretty easily with this. Again, that's not going to make much sense to you now, but just so that you can see in advance, because when we do cover this, you'll remember from this this little tutorial how to do that. Okay, and it's going to be really important that you're able to practice those patterns that we're going to teach you. All right, so makes sense so far. Again, a lot of these patterns probably won't be making much sense, but they will when we get to them. And there are some very, very useful patterns that are pre-built, like the head and shoulders is a very, very common, very, very powerful technique in technical analysis to make certain predictions about where the market's going. So all of these are very important. We're going to cover those later. Just for now, just know where they are. Okay, and this one, the prediction and measurement, there's a whole bunch of stuff you can choose from this. If I'm looking at how, if I just look at this, how much is this little drive? Let's just say, let's make it even from here to here. I see this big drive. I can sit here and say, okay, 168 and go down here and say 136, 135 and have to do math in my head. Or I can just come to price range here and see, and I have, boom, $32.90, right? This is actually going from top to bottom. So let's do it from bottom to top. Notice I started here at the top. That's why it's calculating for me negative values. But if I go from bottom to top, we notice that the values are positive. Okay, so we see that just since October of 2019, we have this 24.19% increase in value here. So it makes it useful if you're doing some analysis. Another thing I like to use that I use all the time is the long and short position indicators here. These are measurement tools to say, and this helps me set up for trade. So let's say I wanted to buy right here, right now. Okay, remember guys, what is the optimal risk reward ratio? Do you guys remember from last class?
1/3.
Exactly, 1 to 3. So if I am considering getting long on Microsoft right here, right now, this tool will help me plan that out. It helps me with my risk and reward.
Can you do this again? How did you do this?
Sure. So I come here to prediction and risk measurement tools. This is right under the patterns that we were just looking at. If I click the drop down for these tools, I have a long position and a short position. Okay, so let's say that we're going long Microsoft. Okay, so if I choose this tool and I click where I want to be long of Microsoft, I have this, this tool here for me. So let's say, all right, I want to be long of Microsoft right now. I'm going to set my stop loss where this wick is. And I'm going to take profits right by where the all-time highs are. Okay, so roughly here. So, So I see that my risk reward ratio is 2.31. Okay, it's not quite 3 yet. So for me to get my 3, I would have to, be up here somewhere. Okay, so this tool can really help you, there we go. So I can move this around to determine, okay, if I'm a little bit less, if I ease my stop loss up, because remember, there's 2 forms of investing, right? Two forms of going about the markets. You could trade or you can invest. So if I'm a little bit more long-term, I might say, well, look, I'm going to go long Microsoft now, but I want to be very lax about my stop loss. So that means I have to be a little bit more aggressive with my profit target. And that's fine because you're going for a little bit longer term. Conversely, if I want to go for a short, again, I go to this predictor, the prediction and measurement tools, and I click short position. Okay, so if I click here, now notice that the green and the red are reversed, because what is the difference between a long and a short position? In a short position, I'm betting that the asset will go down. Okay, so if the asset appreciates and it goes up, I'm losing money. That's why it's red up here. Okay, so let's say I'm shorting Microsoft and I'm going to use this as my stop loss. Okay, there's a lot of different ways we can set our stop losses, and we will be covering those in detail in the technicals module and pretty much revisiting that every module here on out. But if I set my stop loss up here, this tool will help me determine what profit target I want to get. Okay, so if I say, all right, well, I'm going to short it all the way down until here. I mean, that's a pretty good, risk reward ratio right here. And, it's just the tool is going to help you set that. And finally, you can have icons. This is we live in the emoticon generation, so I can put little emojis over here. I don't find those very useful unless I'm making a joke or something, but that's pretty much it for drawing tools. Was there any questions about those before I move on?
So another thing that when we put the short or long term, right? If we stretch it to the side, then you can do it for like 1 month, 2 months.
Oh, yes. Okay, so this is a good point that I forgot to mention. I was going to save it when I got into indicators, but we might just as well discuss about it now. If you notice next to the symbol input window, we have a little time window. So this is set to 15 minutes. The moment I click that, I have opportunities to see different time frames. Okay, 1 minute, 3 minute, 5 minutes, so on. If I actually advocate, this is not just a trading view thing, this is a trading thing in general, is to look at what your asset is doing in the long term, right? On the day level, what your asset is doing on the medium term, That's about a 4-hour window. I like 4 hours. Some people like 2 hours. Some people like 1 hour. And then on the finer scale, I can go down to 30-minute. And finally, I can go down to 5-minute, 15-minute, 3-minute, whatever. So in other words, you want to be looking at the asset on different levels. Okay, so this will allow you to do that simply by adjusting the time frame. So again, if you're more of a longer term trader, well, or investor, you would sit here and you would really be concerned with what the asset is doing on the day level. I can even look at the month level, and from that, it gives you a good perspective on how well Microsoft is doing right now. So, again, going in and getting more granular, you could see more details about what's going on. Okay, so you see a lot more finer details here on the 5-minute than you do on the day, obviously. Make sense?
Are we able to go more than 1 month?
More than 1 month? Well, you pretty much just set it to 1 month, and you can zoom out as much as you can.
Okay.
These things don't always contain all the information about the asset, right? So this is about right for Microsoft. Sometimes it won't go back that far. So this is about all you need. Okay, so also notice what I'm doing here. I'm able to compress the window. I can only do it so far, but I can compress and I can zoom. This is done. I use the 2-finger swipe on Mac, but if you have a PC, you can use the little trackball on the wheel, the mouse wheel, to zoom in with that. That's how that's done. All right. So my favorite drawing tools, again, I kind of touched on these. The trend line, we're going to be using these. We're going to be revisiting this a lot when we come to our technicals. But just to summarize, my favorite tools, again, the trend line, that's right here. I can select this. Okay, so I can sit here and draw these type of things on the screen. I like the Fibonacci retracement tool. Again, that's right below here. Click this little drop down, go to Fib retracement, and I can draw something like this. Okay, and pattern tools. Remember, patterns are 2 steps below this. It says patterns right here. You can click and be able to select any one of these guys, which again will make sense to you when we cover them. And finally, the P&L tool, which is here under measurement. Okay, so I can select long or short. So just in summary, those are my favorite ones to use. Programming and trading, I'm not really going to go too much in detail here, but this is on the bottom pane. Okay, so I can pull this up. This is called the Pine editor. Let's see. I can pull this up. Notice here there's a little thing here, so I can size it as I wish. And it starts you off. If you're into programming and programming your own indicators, which I am, you can go ahead and do it this way. I'm not going to discuss with you the how to do that right now. If you're interested in it, we can suggest another course for it. There's also paper trading, and this is where you can select your broker. Okay. So if you go into any of these that it has pre-built in.
Can you go back? How did you get here in the paper trading?
Okay, so it's on the bottom, right? So you just click on paper trading and it should bring it up.
Okay.
Notice that mine was kind of squished down here. So you have to bring your cursor until you see this little double arrow thing. Click and drag it up.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Now, to hook up your broker, you would simply click on one of these, and it would allow you to log in to your broker so that you can actually get data from your broker. Because as of now, I think this is logged into mine, but yeah, this is logged into mine already. But if I didn't, there would be a little thing in the corner here that says delayed, because futures data is expensive, okay, because it comes from the exchange. So if I'm looking at a futures contract and I don't hook it up to my broker, it will come in as delayed. And the delay time is 10 or 15 minutes. I don't remember which, but it's enough that it's not really usable in trading other than to kind of just look at the chart and practice and understand the main direction of the asset. So linking it up to your broker is fairly important when you get started, but you can still look at spot contracts because spot contracts are always for free. By spot contract, I mean the CFD or the Forex pair. Also, the stock data is usually for free with the larger exchanges. So if I type in Apple, again, we're not delayed here, or are we? Real-time data for Apple. The data for CBOE is in real time is slightly different. Okay, so it's just giving me a little warning here, but it is pretty. I believe the stock contracts, if you don't have an affiliate broker, are going to be in real time. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I have. This should get you started. There are other interesting tools that you could use. Oh yes, I did want to cover adding indicators. Okay, this is the end, but I did want to cover adding indicators. We haven't covered indicators yet, but an indicator is something that does math on the charts. Okay, so what you see here, these moving averages, these are lines that average the price of the asset. So as we see this jostling around here, we have a moving average, which kind of, well, literally averages out that motion. Okay, so moving averages can be used for things like determining momentum and support and resistance. Notice I see that the asset had some trouble touching here. It's a very, very common one, the moving average of 100. But how would you set that? Well, if I go up to the corner here, right next, a couple doors down from the time frame window, I can select an indicator. Okay, so this has thousands of indicators built in. And you could once I teach you the different indicators you can use. For example, you could do Bollinger Bands. That's the width. Let's do Bollinger Bands here. Notice how some of them overlay on the chart. Some of them will pull up a separate window. So I'm going to go ahead and nix that. I simply do that by Xing it out. And if I get tired of one of these guys, notice how it's up here in the top left corner. I can go ahead and either mute it, right? In which case I'll still be able to put it back later. That's the I. Or I can delete it from the chart entirely. And of course, if I want to customize it, I can do that too. Just switch the color or something like that. You see the color here. You see this change, the upper and lower, etc. So I'm going to go ahead and kill that because I don't really need it. But you get the idea on how to set your indicators. And of course, I don't want to overload you too much. There's a bunch of other cool stuff you can do, but I would prefer that you play around with these features real quick, and then we can get into the others. And one final thing, really quickly, let's say you guys are practicing your trend lines and you want to send one to me. Let's just do something stupid here real quick. If you want to copy this image, I go to the camera. It says take a snapshot. And that way I get a URL, okay, that I could just go to copy. And you can go ahead and put it into your Discord and just paste it in there, right? So if I go to, we're done with the slideshow anyway. So if I go to Discord, come to Classroom, and I paste in, and voila, you see how this URL that I got from the snapshot window is there. And as you see here, this is exactly this picture. So it makes it really convenient if you want to share charts and share your technical analysis between each other or with me if you want confirmation of what you're doing or help or whatever. So those are the that's pretty much where I'll wrap it up. I don't want to make this too terribly in depth because I don't want to overwhelm you guys. I want you to practice some of these things that I've taught you here. So does that Is that a good primer, or you guys have any
Yes,
questions?
thank you. No,
Yes.
it was just perfect.
And then we also can buy and sell stuff on TradingView as well.
Right. But you have to hook up your broker, and using that, remember, go to paper trading, and once you have your account, you can sign up by switching to one of these. It'll ask you to log in.
I only have my demo account. Can I put my demo account?
BMO?
Yeah.
No. You need, it's not encyclopedic. It doesn't have all of them. So you need one of these.
Okay.
So we can work with you on setting that up.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
No, thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Awesome. So start practicing with this, and by all means, let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you for your time.
Not a problem. Have a good day, guys.
Thank you.
Sir.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.